My Amazon tank is now 2 weeks old, it's fully cycled with the fish in, but we're just starting to get our first problems, which is just normal for a new system, isn't it? Now, as I think you can see from these shots, everything's looking so good inside the tank. The fish look so healthy and really happy. So the electric blue aquarias were new additions to this group of fish, and I was a little bit worried to start with that there might be aggression between the groups. But I'm pleased to say there's been nothing at all. The fish are just completely placid. There's actually baby Colombian tetras in here, which are small enough for the electric blue aquaria to eat, and they're not bothered at all. They've not even tried to chase them or eat them. So the old school way of getting your tank to cycle was like ammonia. You like buy ammonia, add it to the tank, and then the bacteria builds up for the amount of ammonia going in. But then how do you know how many you're going to stock it with after? I'm sure there's some sort of calculation. Anyway, I haven't got a clue about any of that. The way that I've done it is I put the fish in from day one, and then I add beneficial bacteria and do daily water changes. Many of you who watch my build videos will already know this. And for me, this takes all of the guesswork out of the equation, because by doing the daily water changes, we're reducing any ammonia that's in the tank, because there won't be the colony of bacteria to deal with it yet. But the fact remains there will still be small traces of ammonia at any given time, and that means the bacteria can colonize everywhere. Not only will the bacteria colonize in this small internal filter we've got at the back, but with the amount of substrate we've got in here, the whole system is one big beneficial bacteria factory. When you combine the water changes, the beneficial bacteria, and the amount of plants we've got in this tank together, you're left with a recipe for success. But that doesn't mean everything is plain sailing, because we've still got the usual issues to deal with, like algae for a start, surface scum, plants growing quickly, diatom algae, you name it. There's always issues even with a perfect setup. Yeah, I've just realized I said plants growing too quickly, as if that's ever going to be a problem, is it? Really? So right now we've got algae on the glass. It's like green spot algae. I think the camera's picking it up. I'm not sure though. It should be able to see it. And we've also got a lot of surface scum. I know this because of the residue or residual mess that's all along the top of the tank. You can see it here. It's actually starting to break up, and we're getting less of it, because that was one complete sheen at one point. Yeah, if you look under here, look, you can see it's completely clean where the surface is being disturbed from the filter. And if we come across, there's kind of like a definite line right in the center there where it starts to be the hazy stuff. Again, that's far less than it was, so I think we're winning in that area. I was trying to do this angle here to pick up the green spot on the side, but all the fish just keep swimming into the focus. I might have to switch. Hello. Yes, I can see you. Right, there we go. So there's quite a bit of green spot algae. I've had it far worse in the past though, and it's actually coming off really easy, which is a great sign. There's nothing worse than that sort of welded on stuff. Some of this bits here are a bit more stiff, but you know, overall, easy job to fix. Easy job to fix, easy problem to fix. Easy job to do. And the same again over here on this side. I think you should be picking that up. Look at it, it's coming off nice and easy. Razor scraper for the win every single time. And then we've got a non-stick pan scrubber here, and that'll take off the scum line. Super easy. Look at that, it's gone. Make sure we get it all the way around the tank as well. Don't be lazy. I say that because I know I've been lazy before and just done the front and been like, yeah, don't worry about the rest. Now this might be a really good time for you to check your internal canister filter. I actually did mine a few days ago, which is why the flow is looking so good, but usually I'll wait until I can hear it making a click, click, click sound, which means it's all clogged up and it needs maintenance. To be honest, it's the main reason why I love these filters, is because they force me to clean them. When I've used canister filters in the past, I tend to leave them for like over a year. Which, to be honest, means there's nothing wrong with canister filters, it's just me. I'm the problem. So as I said at the start, we are now 2 weeks into this build, and it's time to start trimming some plants up. I mean, this isn't usually a time that you'd start trimming plants, like a brand new system, but they're already growing to the top. And I mainly attribute that to the awesome, super cheap DIY LED floodlight. Oh, that's a mouthful. Floodlights that we've got on this system. Now, I will be honest with you, I know this isn't going to be for everyone. They're not the most aesthetically pleasing lights I've ever seen. But the total cost, including the lights, the wiring and the wood to make the L brackets, is about £30 or $50 US. And for that amount of light that we're getting, I'd say that's a pretty good deal. Now, a lot of you ask me where I get these LED lights from. I always leave links in my description, so most of the equipment that I'm using, you can find it all down there. So 2 weeks ago when I first set this tank up, all the background plants that you can see there, they were about 3/4 of the way up the tank, and now look, they are growing out of the surface. This is Altanamphra rinikiki, this one is, I can never say it. And this one is Ludwigia granulosa. I'll put it up again as well. So what I actually need to do is start trimming these plants. It's great that they're growing out of the top, but if I don't trim them, what will happen is they'll convert into an immersed state. The bottom parts of the leaves start to look a bit different and go a bit scraggly because it's just concentrating its efforts on getting right up out of the water. So we need to trim them down. Plus, I want to use the clippings for some other tanks as well. So I'm not being overly cautious with this, and it absolutely pains me to do it, especially when the stems are looking so good as they are now. But I've now left plants enough time to know when I really do have to go for it and give them a big trim back. As a result, the tank doesn't look as good for a little while, but you know, you double the amount of plants you get when you trim stems, so it's gonna bounce back and look amazing in no time. A lot of these really nice vibrant green stems you're seeing here is Hygrophila polysperma. It's an amazing beginner plant. It basically grows in low light, high light. It just stays beautifully green as well and instantly gives your aquarium that really fresh look that you're probably after. Lots of you are also wondering how I've got such vibrancy in the red plants without using CO2. Well, I've always found that CO2 isn't a requirement for red plants, high lighting is, so you find that as the stem grows taller and closer to the light, the top parts get really red. Now what that probably means is when I replant them again, they'll revert back to being a sort of more greeny colour and then get vibrant and red again as they grow back up to the top of the tank. Right, I've managed to get a fantastic selection of stems there. And also what's great though is, look at that. So we've got that clear space at the top, and it's also mean the flow is going way better now. Look at this, it's properly rotating around the whole tank. Problem is, a load of the trimmings are now caught up with the salvinia, which is the floating plant. So I think I'm gonna have to pick it all out by hand. I think I'm just gonna collect like loads of the easy to catch salvinia like that on its own, and then I'll just scoop the rest out because I'll be here all day otherwise. Well, that took forever. The things we do for our aquariums, hey? So what's left now in the top floating around everywhere is just the odd bits of leaf that can just be scooped out. And there's a couple of little bits of salvinia left, but I've got plenty now, to be honest. And the last thing that I want to do is get on top of the moss before it gets out of control like every other tank. So I'm going to trim that back as well. And now we are finally there and looking awesome again for, well, another week probably. And the final job now is to go around with a net. That's not a person, that's a net. And, sorry, dad joke. Fish out all of these like bits of broken off leaves and debris that's floating about, and then we are done. Right, the final thing to do, add back in the floating plants. Quite a few here actually, isn't there? I've got one mini water lettuce, actually, so it doesn't get caught up in those plants. It's going to break off the root. It'll grow more. We're all good. Yeah, now the flow's sorted. Look, it's doing that rotation as I wanted it to before, but it was all getting caught in that back corner because all the plants that were growing immersed. But now we're perfect. So it's actually been a couple of days since we cleaned up this aquarium, and let's have a look how it's getting on. Sometimes in these new setups you do a big clean up and then straight away, boom, you're back to square one again. Now to me, the fact that this isn't happening is a really good sign. Look, everything is still really clear and clean. The background has still got it flowing nicely. Salvinia is multiplying so fast now. Like, I'll have to start removing some soon, maybe putting in other tanks. I stopped using the salvinia for a while because I found that it was multiplying too fast. But what I really do love about it is that the roots stay nice and short. Like with all the other ones, the roots can get really long. For instance, over here in my shrimp mountain tank, look, I really like mini water lettuce, or just water lettuce to be honest. Hang on, yeah, there we go. Look, I really like the plant. I think the plant looks fantastic. The issue comes, look, underneath. It's like giant squid all over the place. I'm gonna have to take some of these out soon, aren't I, and trim some of them off, because this tank's doing fantastic on its own. There's loads and loads of baby shrimp in here now. Yeah, like just amongst all the tentacles, to be honest, they're all over the shop. The focus is struggling because some of them a bit further back, but yeah, in the background, up the top, look, there we go. So there's shrimp everywhere and it works really well. It's just not that sightly, is it? I mean, yeah. Here we go. I was trying to get a good shot before, but couldn't really get any, could I? So there's an adult there. Oh, there we go. There's a baby. There's literally, I went to get the camera because I just saw loads of them all down here, and now I can't see any of them. That's always the way, isn't it? Every time. Anyway, trust me, there are absolutely loads in here. So look, there's one right there. You can see one on the rock in the background. We've got a couple down here in the foreground as well. One on that rock. Now, I only started with like 10 in here. So the fact that we can like see them all the time everywhere is awesome. I really need to sort out all of those floating plants though, don't I? So for me, one of the key factors in being able to get this whole thing right is the lighting levels. I have managed to nail it with the LED floodlights that we've got here, 30 watts each, and you know, it's just the right amount. There's a little bit of luck involved there because I've suspended them at what I thought would be roughly the right height. I thought I might need to adjust it with some like lowering blocks or something, but it seems to be absolutely perfect because we haven't got algae everywhere, and after several weeks we would have if that was going to happen. So I'm really happy with how this one is turning out. It's always daunting when you start a new big project because the worry is that it's going to be worse than the one that you did before. And if that is something that you guys are worried about, I suggest you just take the plunge. It's well worth it. I mean, yes, you are probably going to make some mistakes. There are going to be some things that are going to go wrong, but it doesn't matter. That's all part of the learning process. I've messed up so many times. It's got to the point now where I can set up a big tank like this and pretty much everything goes right. Now, that doesn't mean that everything I do is going to be correct, does it? Because even this one might go all wrong at some point. But again, because I've done this so many times now, even if it does go wrong, I feel like I've got the skills to be able to combat anything that comes up. And to be honest, that's pretty much the key to everything, isn't it? Just learning from your mistakes and getting better and better. So we added the cleanup crew to the neon tetra tank about a week and a half ago, something like that. I'm pleased to say, fantastic results, which I'm really happy with. Now, the tank's been very healthy for a while, so fish health was never a concern at all, and as you can see, all the neons are looking amazing. But what we did have was this whole front section chock-a-block with just like this weird algae and slime in the bottom, especially this Blixer japonica. This was caked, and now looking beautiful. But now what this does mean is we've got more balance, and once you've got balance, trimming plants should be your next like sort of goal, I guess. Now, the reason I say once you've got balance is because cutting plants will stop their growth, which means they won't use as many nutrients while they're trying to repair, and then you'll probably get more algae. But I would class now as more sort of minimal or background levels of algae, so we're now good with any trimming that needs to happen. And I'm now learning from previous experience, take out the floating plants first before you start trimming. So one of the main things that I wanted to tackle was the moss. This is because I've promised myself recently I'm going to keep on top of any moss in any tanks. That's apart from the Rainbow River one, which has already gone nuts. I don't know what I'm going to do about that yet anyway. Then after that, it was just a case of cutting back the stem plants. Now, I cut these down to a level where I want to start seeing like extra shoots come from. At the point where I've trimmed, we'll start seeing twice as many stems, and that'll thicken out that back area no end. And then it's just a case of scooping up any of the plants you've trimmed and then tidying up any that you've missed as well. There's always going to be a couple. For some reason, I like to pick up the big pieces of plant by hand, and then I use a net for the rest. No idea why I do this. And then if you've got time, use a fine net to pick up the smallest particles, or just leave it for the filter if you can't be bothered. So it's now been 3 days since I did the maintenance that you saw on this tank, and I'm really pleased with how it's actually going. We're getting new growth, and all the plants are so clean as well. So yeah, just look at all of these amazing plants in the foreground here. None of them have got any algae on them at all anymore. And this here is really cool. That's the Liliopsis brasiliensis at the back, spreading runners forwards, and that's going to sort of carpet everywhere as well. I also trimmed some of the S. repens in the background and replanted it into the foreground, and I'm going to keep that going and just like add more texture in that area, because look, it looks so good. These right in the middle here, this is the S. repens. It's such a jungly vibe, isn't it? And the fish are just as happy and healthy as ever. Let's give them some food. Everyone loves to feed neon tetras. Here we go then. I've got my flake here. Just sprinkle it on the top. These guys fully know when it's feeding time, like they train all my fish, as I've said before, tapping. I suggest you do that as well, because it's a much better experience. You can get all of the fish to come to the foreground. You can see that they're all healthy, look for any signs. This is the best time to check your fish, because they're all coming out in the open together, and they don't move around too much. Look, you know, I can look at each individual one and see that they're all okay and doing great. And then this right here is my brand new tiger barb aquarium. It's only, what we're on, we're on day 4 since setup. It's doing fantastic, really pleased with the start. Sometimes you worry, don't you, you're gonna get a bad start, but we haven't got a bad start. All the fish are doing great. They've coloured up insane now. Look at this. Look at, I'm trying to focus. Come on, focus, there you go. Stay still. They're such little characters, the tiger barbs. And look at those red fins. They always school together so well. Look, you can see that. They're all following there, the first one to go in a different direction. So overall tank looking great, glass good, plants good, all standing up straight now, but we have still got this fungus on the wood. So I wanted to show you guys this so you know that I get it too, because quite often people are like, oh, I never see any fungus on your wood. It literally depends on the wood that you've got and if you'll get that fungus. Sometimes I reuse old wood, which is, you know, already been soaked, and then you don't get any of it. Some people say it's a fungus, some people say it's a sap. I mean, it could well be the sap, because it only comes out on the sort of lighter coloured new wood, do you know what I mean? It's hard to explain really, but this is now day 4 and it's starting to go down on its own. Now I have got a clean up crew in this tank. I've got the auto sink list, haven't I? There they are, some over there in the back corner. And I've also got Amano, shrimp, and we've got the snails, so they're all gonna pick at this. It was a lot bigger than what we're seeing now. Like this whole section here was massive. You couldn't see any of those little stumpy bits, it was the whole lot. So yeah, we've either got 2 options here. Either we can suck it off or we can just leave it. Now obviously, if this is the display tank in your house, you're gonna wanna get rid of it pretty quickly. So just use a pipe or a brush and it'll come straight off. But if you're worried about the health of your fish, do not worry at all. There's nothing wrong with the stuff and it won't hurt them in any way. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this tank progresses. And I'm probably gonna give it its first trim already, even though it's 4 days, because that rotala is reaching the surface already. Now granted, I did plant it quite close to the surface, just for the build video to give that instant impact, but it's definitely grown a few inches already. Now, as said with all new fish, I think these are my favourite fish. I'm absolutely loving them at the moment, and I said in the description for the build video, I would like to do like a tank of 100 of them. How good would that be?